Hi, friends. Valerie Garcia here. Thank you so much for downloading this workbook and taking the time to actually fill it out. Do you know most people, when they sit down to business plan, they take the workbook, they maybe fill out a few pages, they forget about it, they throw it in a drawer, and they never go back to it. But you are not going to do that. You've got your workbook and you are going to dive in and not just succeed this year, you're going to smash it. That's what I want for you. So let's do a little housekeeping before we begin. You have hopefully downloaded your workbook at this point. If you've printed it, it looks a little bit like this. You can also open it on your iPad, fill it out with your handy dandy little Apple pencil. You can bring it onto your screen and you can take notes on a second on a printed version. There are also some built-in forms within the workbook that you will need to click on. Those are stored in Google Docs, so you'll want to copy those. Don't send me a request for editing because I won't give you access to edit them. So you need to make a copy and then that copy is yours to edit. So, all right, so you have your handy dandy little workbook, right? You have it downloaded or you have it printed out, and we are going to go ahead and jump in. Now, I know that this workbook is 60 pages long and it feels a little bit intense. I promise you it's not. You can do this. Here's the thing about business planning. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's simple. We're going to make it simple today, but we're also going to make it a little bit fun because I don't think business planning should be boring. And I don't think it should be something that we dread. I think it's something that we should look forward to. In fact, I've gotten to a place in my business where I don't business plan annually. I plan quarterly because God knows what it's going to be a year from now. Who knows? Who knows where we're going to be? So I really only look 90 days out. So you can do this for a year. And then there's some places in here where you can break it down into smaller pieces. And I really encourage you to do that. All right, you've got your workbook. We are going to go ahead and jump in. Now, your book is organized this way into 5 chapters. So you have your business plan, your money management, your time management, branding, and marketing. But instead of doing it in 5 sections today, we're actually going to do it in 7. So we are going to start by setting our course. Then we're going to review our numbers, and then we are going to set our goals. There is a reason for this. I will tell you this in a little later, why we don't just start with our goals. Then we're going to get really focused on what it is that we need to do in order to achieve those goals. We're going to talk profit because it's not just our goal to have a great business. It is our goal to have a profitable business, right? So we're going to talk about profit and hand in hand how we manage our money and our time with that. And then there are a couple of bonus chapters in here, branding and marketing. We're going to touch on those just briefly. Most of that work is going to be for you to go ahead and do on your own and read through. But we're going to walk through these 7 sections, and I'm going to pause between each one. So if you want to pause the screen or pause the camera and do some work, go back and work on some of these, you can absolutely do that. All right, let's dive in, shall we? We are going to start with our very first section, set your course. Now, you might notice there's a bunch of maps behind me, and that is because one of the number one things that I always want to remember when it comes to my business is that if we don't have a map, we have no idea where we're going. We have to figure out where our destination is. We have to figure out where we are pointing to. We have to figure out our North Star, because if we don't do that, who knows where we're going to end up, right? So the first thing that I want to do with you is figure out where it is you want to go. Now, this isn't scary. This is really simple. We are going to start by figuring out what success looks like to you. Now, this is going to look different for everybody. Everybody is going to have a different answer to this question. Some of you are going to say, success to me looks like a certain dollar amount. Some of you are going to say, success to me looks like a number of days off, or a big vacation, or retirement, or success to me looks like a certain number of properties sold, or maybe buying my own investment property, or paying for my kids' tuition. Maybe it's just work-life balance. Doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong answer. But the reason I like you to start here is for you to determine that end point. Again, that X on the map, where it is that you are going. Because we are going to have days, y'all. We are going to have days where we don't feel like getting out of bed. We don't want to do anything, and we don't want to stick to the plan. And this is the thing that's going to keep us on course. So, what does success look like to you? I want you to take some time and fill that in. I also, the second piece on this page is what were your top successes in the past year? Super important. Go back and review. What did you do well? What did you win? What were some of the things that you achieved? What are some of the things that you celebrated? It's time for us to celebrate these things more often because often we just kind of look back and go, yep, that was a year, it was fine, and we move forward. But the more that we celebrate, the more that we take the time to see what our successes were, the more likely we are to really think about what did we do to achieve that and how can we repeat that process. All right, so our next page, we are going to be on page number 6. This is where we're going to do a SWOT analysis. This is one of my favorite things to do when we're business planning. A SWOT analysis, SWOT, just stands for strengths, weaknesses, not weaknesses, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. All right, now this is where we sit down with our piece of paper, with our notebook, and start to really identify what have we got going for us in our business right now, and what do we need to work on? So let's start with our strengths. It's a good place to start. Let's talk about things that you're naturally good at, areas in your business that are strong, resources that you already have that you can tap into. So start listing these, write them down. Maybe you're really great at communication. Maybe you're really organized. Maybe you have a great, strong database. Maybe you have a huge referral network. Maybe you are a really great time manager. Maybe you love to talk to people. All of these things are strengths that add to the depth of your experience and the way that you run your business. So write all those things down. It's really important for us to realize, hey, I'm good at these things. This naturally happens for me. I don't have to work at it. And so the more that we can lean into those strengths, the better off we are going to be. Okay, you wrote your strengths down. That's awesome. Now let's talk about your weaknesses. These are things we need to improve on, things we need to learn, maybe some resources that we are missing. Now, typically, when we start thinking of our weaknesses, we think personally, hey, like I suck at this or I suck at that. I want you to think in terms of your business. What are some things that you could improve on in terms of your business? Maybe it is financial, maybe it is money management, maybe it's time or task management. Maybe it's a specific skill that you know you need to learn this year. Maybe it's technology or social media or video, or maybe it's marketing skills in general. Maybe it's organizational skills. Maybe you're like, hey, I have been operating for this many years without a CRM. It's time to change that. So write down those weaknesses. Those are areas that we know we need to improve or resources that we are missing. All right, so now we get our strengths and our weaknesses. Let's look at our threats. We could go right to opportunities. I know I'm doing this out of order, but I like to just touch on our threats for just a minute. Threats are things that are going to have an impact on our business, but we cannot control them. So why do we list these? A, we can plan around them. And B, it reminds us not to plan our entire business based on these threats. I don't want you to go, the market's tough, rates are higher, or maybe right now it is a buyer's market or a seller's market or whatever it is, and that's going to have an impact. I don't want you to base your business on that, but I do want you to keep it in your mind because that may have an impact on some of the marketing that you do, some of the systems that you put in place. So we want to make sure that we identify what those are. Okay, great. Now let's move on to the most important part of a SWOT analysis. This is where we talk about our opportunities. We base our entire business plan around our opportunities. A little bit our strengths, not so much our weaknesses, our opportunities. So I want you to think mentally, you've got your weaknesses, you're going to take an arrow and draw it directly to opportunities. Every single weakness that you wrote down correlates with an opportunity. If you're not a great time or money manager, maybe it's time to either figure out how to put a system in place, learn to time block, get a bookkeeper, whatever that's going to do to help you solve that problem. The flip side of your weaknesses are always your opportunities. So what are those things that you need to learn or cultivate, those skills, maybe those resources that you need to acquire? This is where the magic happens in our business, y'all. When we focus on our opportunities. The magic happens. We could just build our entire business around our strengths, but the problem is we would keep doing the same thing year after year. And you know what happens when you keep doing the same thing year after year? You get the same results. So we want to focus on our opportunities. Great. So I really want you to spend some time on this. We're going to skip through this a little quickly, but I want you to come back to this and really think about weaknesses and opportunities. All right. I also want you to spend a little bit of time thinking about your why. Now, I know some of you are thinking, my why, this is so woo, who cares? This is so, yesterday, everybody's talked about our why. My why is making money. And yeah, you know what? Your business why a lot of times is making money, but there's got to be something else. What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning? What is it that keeps you doing this job? What is it that makes you continually stay in this career? What is the one thing that makes you light up, that makes it feel like you just flung glitter in the air? That moment that happens in your business that you want more of? That's what I want you to write down. Those are those things that are going to keep you going. And the reason why I ask you to write those down is because I want you to remember them. I want you to think about them. I want you to make sure that you put those in writing, because those are the things that are going to help you not just get to your goals, but stay focused on them even when things are hard. All right. So we looked at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, our threats. We looked at our why, and you took a minute and defined what success looks like to you. This first section seems like a really easy, sort of maybe a throwaway bit. A lot of people skip this. I beg you not to. Please don't skip this part. This is the part that really makes this real for you. This is the whole reason why you run your business. This is the whole reason why you are in business. This is the reason why you do what you do. So don't skip this. Take the time to identify success for me this year looks like X. This is what I'm strong in. This is where I'm weak. These are my opportunities. Really important that you spend time on that. And this is why I get out of bed in the morning. This is why I keep doing this. Awesome. Now we've got a really great course that we have set. We've got a map. We know where we're going. We are aiming for that success. We know exactly the strengths that we have that are going to get us there, the opportunities that are going to move us beyond our goals, and we know why we're going to keep going. Bravo. You've got this. All right. Next, we are going to review. If you want to pause and go back and fill this out, now is the time to do that. Okay, we're back. Second section, review. This is where we start looking at where we're at. We've already set our course. We have our map. We have our location, where we are aiming this year. Now we've got to review where we are. Where are we starting from? Where is the beginning square on this board game that we are in of this year? All right, this is where it gets a little mathy. We have some numbers in here. So there are some places where you're probably going to want to pull out your phone, open your calculator app, and do some numbers and do some math. I will help you through those. You might not have all of the information that you need at hand right now to help you do this, but you can always pause and come back. All right, let's dig in. So let's review. First of all, we have to look at where our money comes from. Honestly, guys, we can never figure out what we are doing, where we are going, if we don't know where we have been. A lot of times we don't like to look back. We like to put all of this information in a drawer, in a shoebox, hand it to our accountant for tax day, and forget about it. But that is not how we run a profitable business. In order to run a profitable business, we are comfortable talking about our numbers. We are comfortable talking about where our business comes from, where our money comes from, and where our money goes. All right, so let's start with our income producing activities. Everybody's favorite IPAs, right? So this is where we start to figure out, where did your business come from in the last year or 2 years? So it doesn't have to just, you don't have to just look at the last 12 months. Sometimes it's helpful to look at the last 12, 24 months. Go back and look, where did your business come from? This form is going to let you just start putting some tick marks in these boxes. You're going to look at this and think, okay, got a couple of buyers from this section, a couple of sellers here, nothing in this box. Okay, maybe a couple here, nothing here. As you start to go back and you look through all of the transactions, all of the relationships, all of the income producing activities that you've done over the last year or two and what it's led to, this is where you start to get a really good picture of what's working in your business and what's not. Now, As you start filling this out, immediately, you're going to have some boxes that have more tick marks. Some of you are going to say, yep, repeat, referral, absolutely, lots of tick marks there. That's a really common place for me to get business from. If you're newer to the business, maybe you don't have as many in those boxes. It's okay. There's no right or wrong here. This is just honestly getting truthy with your own business as it is right now. So some of you may be looking and saying, I don't farm, or I don't hold open houses, or I don't run any print ads. So there's nothing in those boxes. Again, that's okay. So you're going to have some sections that have tick marks and some sections that don't. This is where you start asking yourself some questions. Are there no tick marks in those boxes because I'm not doing those things, but I could, or because I am doing those things and it's not working? So this is where we have to really start to look at, why do we have blank spaces? We want to pay attention to where the most tick marks are on here, because that's obviously something that's working in our business. That's a strength. That's great. But our blank marks, or the areas where we don't have any tick marks, we want to identify which of those are opportunities. And they're not all going to be opportunities for you. Some of you are going to look at these and go, cold calling, it's never going to be my bag. That's not what I'm going to do. Okay, great. Off the list. And there's some blank spaces at the bottom, so you can add in some other things if there are some things that I've forgotten or some other things that you do. Some of you may have some, sponsorships, or you may have some events that you put on, maybe your community activities, whatever it is. I really want you to drill down. Where are your opportunities? Okay, so you're going to spend some time here. Next, we are going to start looking at your numbers. Now, for those of you that check out on this page, please bear with me. This is where it gets really mathy, but it's really important. It's important that we know the ins and outs of our business, and that is where our numbers come in. So this is where you want to look back over your last year or two, and you want to start identifying how many listing appointments you went on. Of those, how many listings were taken and how many sold, how many, what your average sales price was. That's really important. Again, you just take your listings, number of sales, right? Divide those. Now you've got your average sales price. Super important that you have that number. I've highlighted it in yellow because we're going to use that a little bit later. And then what's your average commission? So again, if you look at all of the deals that you've done and you look at what you've earned, what is the average commission amount that you earn in your business? Again, if you're new and you don't know these numbers, or you don't have any numbers yet, don't be worried. You can just use the average that's in your, you can ask your broker and get the average for what is common in your brokerage. Or you could ask a colleague, just ask someone and say, hey, what's the average sales price? And on average, what's your commission percentage? And just use those, and that will help you fill this out. All right, now you know your numbers. We're going to come back to these in a little bit, and we're going to start to put some math behind these, and I'll explain why. But before we do that, let's talk about your business expenses. Oh, I know you hate this page. So do I. I'm not going to lie. I really don't like doing this, because this is where the rubber hits the road, and I realize I probably don't know as much about my business as I should. I probably put this off until tax season every year, and then pull out my accounts payable, or I run my expense sheet and I realize, ooh, I spent a lot on this section and I had no idea, or I didn't spend enough on this section and I had no idea. This is where we start to eyeball. This is not where we get like super in the weeds. This is where we start to eyeball. What do we spend per month? So what do you spend just to have your license active? Now, if you don't know this, you're not alone. A lot of people don't, but it's really important information. What does it cost you just to be in business? Just to have an active license with your board dues, your MLS dues, your licensing fees, your E&O insurance, whatever it costs you to just keep your license active. That's what I want you to put in that section. So either annually, monthly, however you pay it. Now we start to break down what else we spend on our business. Our entertainment costs, professional development, our phone and our internet, our tech software. This is a big one. This is where a lot of these just come off our credit card automatically every month. That app we paid for, that tool we're not using, that something we signed up for at a conference, all of those things add up. So this is where we start to go in and we really take a look at what comes off our credit card. What do we subscribe to? All of that goes under these categories. Then we've got our print marketing, any flyers, ads, business cards, anything that we print out, our signs, our direct mail, postage, promotional stuff, sales costs, our outside services. So like consulting, bookkeeping, legal services, whatever we have that we are using to help support our business, travel expenses, auto insurance. I put sales costs in here because I always say, every single agent at some point in their business buys a fridge. And that is just because every once in a while, we just have to buy something to get a deal over the line, right? And so anything that goes in there, sometimes we've got people that put an amount in here for goodwill. So they'll say to their team, hey, you know what? If it's under $100 and it makes a customer happy, just make the decision, and they budget for that. So whatever those amounts are, this is where I want you to start adding it in. Now, the reason why we start here, we don't go into the weeds, we just start eyeballing it, is because I want you to start thinking as we look at where our deals are coming from. I want you to start thinking about where your money is going, just ballparking it, because now we have an idea really in our head of the importance of knowing our numbers. We start looking this, and a lot of us kind of look at this and go, I don't know. I don't know what I spend in this category. I don't know how much it cost me to be in business. I don't actually know what I spent on outside services last year. Again, no shame. You're not alone, but it's really important that we start realizing these are the areas that are potentially keeping us from having a profitable business. All right. So you've started to think about where your business is coming from, your income producing activities, your IPAs. And now we've started looking at our business expenses. Now let's start thinking about how these numbers start to combine. Okay. So before I have you fill this out, before you get too mathy here, I want you to think about the fact that in our industry, in our business, real estate, it typically says, the stats typically say that it takes 40 prospecting conversations to equal a transaction. 40 leads, 40 people that we talk to and have an intentional conversation about buying or selling. For 40 of those, that equals one transaction. So that's not just, hey, Bob, how you doing in the grocery store? Have a good day. These are intentional conversations with potential buyers and sellers. So 40 of those equals one transaction. So now that we know that, we have to start putting some numbers behind this. So the first thing we do here is we put in your average sales price into the top section. We're just going to focus on the top section of this page right now. So you've got in the yellow here, your average sales price. So whatever that is for you, this, it widely varies based on where you are in the country or based on where you are in the world. So I want you to put in your average sales price here, and then your average commission percentage. When you look at all of your transactions on average, what is the percentage that you are earning in your business? All right. Then we're going to do some math. So this is where you're going to pull out your calculator on your phone. This is where we get to, stick it to that math teacher we had in high school that said, you're never going to have a calculator all the time. Yes, we are. All right. So this is where you do a little math. This is where you start to calculate your GCI. And this is essentially what you make, gross closed income, right? This is just right off the top. And this is easy. Essentially, you are just going to multiply what your average sales percentage is by your average commission, and that is how much you make per transaction. Okay, so yellow times pink equals blue. Easy. All right, now it gets a little more mathy. This is where you need to figure out how much you keep. So it's going to be different for all of you. Every single one of you watching this, you're going to have a different split, a different cap, a different situation, a different brokerage arrangement. Whatever that is, this is where you start to factor in how much you keep and how much you don't. This is also where you need to factor in how much of that money does not belong to you, how much of it belongs to the government, because we pay taxes on this. So what's in the blue is just gross. What's in the green is after you take out your taxes and your split. So I typically, when I get paid, take a straight 25% off the top, chuck it in an account, pretend it doesn't exist. I'm always a little bit here or there, depending on how much I make that year. But I always take a straight 25% out. So I could take 25% out of that blue, and then I would factor in what else that I would pay out to my brokerage, et cetera. Okay, great. So now we know how much we keep per transaction. This is where it gets good. This is where you get to put in, how much do you want to make? And I'm not talking how much do you want to make gross. I'm talking how much do you want to take home? How much do you want to put in your little pocket, take home and have. All right, so you're going to put that number in that little white box. Income goal is how much you want to make. And once you have that number in there, we can figure out how many deals that we need to do, right? So if we know that our net is in the green and we know how much we want to make, all we need to do is divide our goal by what's in the green. And now we know how many transactions we need, right? Simple. Okay, so here's an example. Again, this may absolutely not be even close to what you make or even close to what is the average sales price in your neighborhood. This is just a number I've picked out of the air. So if you have 700,000 in that top line and your average commission's around 2.5%, before split and taxes per transaction, you will be making 17,500. After split and taxes, I've just sort of made up a split here. This person makes 10,500. So if their income goal is 300,000, they need to do 29 transactions. Now, obviously we know if those transactions are higher than average, they don't need to do as many. If they do a whole lot of lower price transactions, they'll need to do more. But this is just giving us a ballpark. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second section of this page. This is where we start to figure out, what does this mean for us in terms of our goals? So now we've got Bob, let's call him Bob, our fake guy who's filling out this workbook with us, and he needs to do 29 transactions. So let's figure out, how many income producing conversations does he need to have? How many daily prospecting conversations does he need to have in order to hit his goals? So industry stats say we need 40 conversations. Now 40 times 29 is 1,160. That sounds like a lot of conversations, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like, oof, that's a lot of people? Let's make it a little bit easier. Let's break it down a little bit more. Let's divide it by 11. 11 months, not even 12. I know there are 12 months in the year, but let's break it down by 11, because you're going to go on vacation, you're going to have some time off, you're going to miss some days, you're going to get sick, whatever. Let's just give ourselves a little wiggle room, right? Okay, so if we do that math, 1,160 divided by 11, that means Bob needs to talk to 105 people a month. Okay, totally doable, right? That feels a little bit more doable. Let's make it even more real. Let's say that Bob is going to work 20 days a month of those 11 months, 20 days, no weekends. Let's just take weekends right off the table when it comes to prospecting. And he's going to work 20 days a month. Let's break it down daily. So we take that 105, we divide it by 20, and now we know that Bob needs to have 5 intentional prospecting conversations every day. Can we do that? Heck yes, we can do that. Every single one of us can do that. And you know what? I have done this exercise with hundreds, if not thousands of agents, and every single person comes in somewhere between 4 and 7. And you know what? Those are absolutely realistic numbers. Now, if you say to me, Val, I have come in way outside of that. I have 1 prospecting conversation a day, or I have 28. This is where you really have to start looking at the numbers that you have put in here. You need to start looking at the realist. I think you could have 28 conversations a day if you really tried, but you may need to revise your goal a little bit based on your sales price. We'll talk about that. If you only have 1, if you are logging 1 or 2, you're not being brave enough with your goal. You're not setting your goal high enough, because 1 or 2 conversations a day, you can do more than that. Every single one of us, we could be Bob, we could do 5 conversations a day easily. 5 conversations, 5 people that we talk to, 5 people that we ring up, 5 people that we email. Hey, how's it going? You're on my database. We've talked in the past. You've come to an open house. We've met. However, you have ended up in my sphere, and I would love to talk to you about real estate, right? We can all do this. All right. So in the book, there is a sample that's going to sort of walk you through this, because I know math is not everyone's strong suit, but we can all calculate how much money we're going to make, right? That is the one transaction that we can absolutely do. So got a little bit of a worksheet here for you to fill this out. And the reason why we do this at this stage is because I want you to start thinking about that number. In this case, I'm going to use Bob as the example. 5 conversations a day. Everything that we do going forward in this workbook, when we set our goals, when we start looking at our daily activities, when we start looking at our habits, we start looking at things we need to stop doing, we're all going to think about our daily number when we put those into place. When we start thinking, is this going to allow me? Is this going to prepare me? Is this going to set me up to talk to those 5 people a day? Okay, great. You've done the math, you know your number. Now we get to move forward. You know where your business comes from. You've taken the time to sort of ballpark, this is where my buyers come from. This is where my sellers come from. I have an understanding of maybe where my opportunities are there. I know my stats. I ran my numbers. I got some clarity on my expenses. Again, high level ballpark, start to look at where those big chunks of money are going towards my license, towards my professional development, towards my marketing. Maybe I've got some wonkiness there where I'm spending way too much in certain categories. We've started to be aware. And then we've identified our daily conversation number. Great. You've done some of the hardest work yet so far. I'm really proud of you. I'm going to let you pause here if you want to go back and fill in anything in your workbook. And then we're going to move forward and we're going to start to set some goals. All right, time to set some goals. Y'all, this is the fun part. This is where it gets good. I know a lot of people think, oh, setting goals, this is such a struggle. I don't know what to write. Like, I don't know anything other than just that number. But setting goals is fun. In fact, I really love setting goals because it gives me something to aim for. Again, they're like the map. This is where we want to go. This is what's going to motivate us. And so we're going to go ahead and start working on setting some goals. But before we do that, I have a couple of words that I want to talk to you about. And the first 3 words are stop, start, continue. Now I'm going to lean in for this one because y'all, this is where most of us we just give up. This is where it gets really hard. This is where we have to start talking about our habits. This is where we have to start talking about what we're doing wrong. This is where we start to quit. So if we know that we have to talk to 5 people a day, we know that we are going to have to achieve that big number. What do we need to stop doing in order to get there? Now, I don't know about you, but immediately the first thing that comes to mind for me is stop sleeping with this thing. Stop waking up next to it. Stop scrolling on it so much. Stop being unintentional with it. Stop letting it take up so much of my day. And that's okay. It's absolutely a common thing that a lot of us are feeling that way. But we also have to be kind of specific about it. We can't just stop using our phone altogether. But maybe you can say, I'm going to stop answering my phone after 10 p.m. I'm going to put it on do not disturb. I'm going to be really intentional about how I use my phone after a certain time of the day. Maybe I'm going to take an app off my phone so that I don't spend time on that specifically when I should be doing something else. So what is it that you need to stop doing in order to achieve your goals? For me, one of my goals this year was to accomplish something really big. And in order to do that, I had to stop watching television for a period of about 2.5 months. I literally just had to not turn it on. I literally went behind my television and unplugged it. So I could not turn it on because I had to spend that time that I would normally spend watching TV focused on something else. So what is that thing you need to stop doing? Secondly, what do you need to start doing? What is that one thing that you need to do in order to achieve your goals? Maybe it's having a time blocking system. Maybe it is replacing that old habit with that new one. Maybe it is becoming more intentional with having conversations with people that are already in your database. Maybe it is picking up the phone and calling 5 people a day. Whatever that start is for you, I want you to be really clear and identify. I don't want you to say, do more of this. I want you to be really specific as to how many and when and what time of the day and how are you going to start doing those things. And then we're going to continue doing things because we're not going to scrap everything. You've got things that are working really well in your business. So what are those things you need to continue doing and either do more of or adapt or improve those existing things? Okay, so stop, start, continue. Super important. Every time I get really stuck in my business, I pull out a sheet of paper and I do a stop, start, continue. And I get really clear really quickly on what I should not be spending my time on. All right. Now I want to give you a couple other words. As we start to set our goals, we've sort of built ourselves up to this point. We've set some parameters of where our business is coming from and really kind of where we want to get financially. We've started to identify a little bit of our expenses. Now we're going to really put some goals on paper. Where do you want to go? How do you even know what you're aiming for? Again, we want to come back to that idea of your why. What are you aiming for? What is the X on your map that you are aiming for? Um, I want you to get real specific. The first word that I want you to write down on your goals page is I want you to write down the word specific. We don't buy plane tickets to wherever. We are very specific with our goal in terms of where we are traveling. And I want you to get very specific with your goals as well in terms of your business. Anytime you see the word more or better in your goals, I'm going to ask you to cross it out and get specific. The more specific, the better. I have a coach that always says to me, get more specific, Val. And I say, well, my goal is to do this. And he says, get more specific. And I realize my goal is not this big thing. It's a smaller thing that I need to do consistently. And then he says, get more specific. And I realize I can break that into even smaller things that I can do even more consistently. The more specific I can be, the better. So your goal may not be spend less time on your phone. Your goal may be turn your phone off at 9 p.m. every single night, right? The more specific we can be, the more likely we are to achieve our goals. This also goes hand in hand with this. Make your goals smaller. You don't need to have, I'm not saying I don't want you to have big goals. I want you to have really big goals, like giant goals, but I want you to break them into tiny pieces because you can achieve a really big goal, but you can achieve lots and lots of little goals. My goal for this past year, was to write a book. That's been my goal for years. But the idea of writing a book is too big for your brain to comprehend. And so if I get more specific, my goal was actually to write 7 chapters. But then I can get even more specific and say, my goal was to write 1,000 words a day. I could get even more specific than that and say, my goal was to block out 20 minutes a day to write. If I could spend 20 minutes a day, uninterrupted time writing, and that was locked into my calendar, absolutely do not touch that 20 minutes. It is always for writing. I can achieve my really big goal. But if I just write on my list, goal is to write a book, I will never do that. It's just far too big for my brain to wrap its brain around. But I wrote my book last year, and that is because I blocked out 20 minutes a day and got very, very intentional and consistent with that time. So we want to break your goals. Those big goals are great. Big goals, yay, into really small pieces. All right. And then I want you to stretch your goals a bit. You're probably wondering, why are there underwear on this screen, Val? But here's the thing. I always say goals are like underwear. Once you stretch them, they never really go back to the same shape. And some of you, your goals are real tight. They're real specific. And that's great. But I bet you could stretch them a little bit more. I bet you could be a little braver. I bet you could go from those 1 or 2 calls a day to 5. Right? I really do think that you could stretch your goals. I love this Les Brown quote. Most people fail not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit their target. So we're not aiming super low. We are aiming at a comfortable, scared space. I want you to feel a little bit terrified about where you are aiming, right? Because even if you don't hit that, you are further ahead than you would have been. And then I want you to make your goals visible. This is where it gets real important. I think a lot of people, what they do, they get this book. It's great. They fill it out just like you're doing right now. They go, that's great. I did a business plan. They chuck it in a drawer and they look at it again in a year or maybe never again. If you want to achieve your goals, you have got to make them visible. What you don't see right now at the bottom of my screen is all along the bottom of my computer monitor. I have sticky notes with my goals written on them. I have these little sticky notes, and I put one across the bottom of my screen, and each one has one of my goals for either this quarter or this year written on them. I see them every single day. They stare at me every single day. There is no way that I can forget that that was one of my goals. This is really important because what a lot of people do is they don't look at them. They don't see them. They go, I don't even remember what I wrote down. It's very difficult for us to achieve something if we don't consistently look at it. So I want you to make them visible. All right, so specific, smaller pieces, stretched, and visible. Now that we have those really clear instructions on page 14, I want you to write down your goals, not just personal, but also professional, because we are whole humans and our work is not the only part of us. So I want you to write down your personal goals as well as your professional. Remember, we are not allowed to use more or better because those are not specific enough. You could say, go to the gym more, but you could go once more and then you win. So that doesn't count. You've got to be specific, and you can give yourself a deadline here. I highly recommend you do that. But I want you to spend some time on this page. I want you to really think, what are some things that I want to achieve that are in line with where I want to go on the map, that are in line with my why, that are in line with my purpose, that are in line with the things that feel like success to me? And how do I make them more specific, break them into smaller pieces, terrify myself a little bit, and then make them visible to myself? Okay, so I want you to spend some time on this page. All right. The next page is really just a little bit of notes of how I break my goals down even further. This is a procedure that I have adopted to help me figure out how to take even that small goal and break it down into even smaller pieces. So, what do you want to do? Get as specific as possible. Who can help you? Again, what do you need to do first? Is it, I need to set an alarm? I need to put this in my calendar. I need to get accountability. I need to put that sticky note at the bottom of my screen. Be as specific as possible on your steps. And then how are you going to start? What's the first step? What's the next step after that? What's the step after that? How are you going to put those into your calendar so that you are making these commitments to yourself? And then how are you going to speak up? How are you going to tell other people that these are your goals? How are you going to make them visible? How are you going to seek accountability? How are you going to prepare for what happens? What if you achieve that goal right away? What's the next goal? What if it takes you longer to achieve that goal? How are you going to adjust your budget, your time, your energy? And then ultimately, when you achieve that goal, what are you going to focus on next? Are you going to rinse and repeat? Are you going to make it bigger? Answering these questions for each and every one of your goals, I know it sounds tedious. You're probably thinking, Val, this is a lot of work. You're right. It is a lot of work, but this is how we actually achieve our goals, not writing them down and shoving them in a drawer, but actually putting a plan in place for each and every one of them. So if those goals are important enough to you, you will put them in your calendar. That's how I know they're important enough to you. Okay. All right. I've also given you a little bit of a template here. This is not in your workbook. I have added this since the workbook was created, and you can get this template and fill it out at the bit.ly link that you see on your screen right here. So that's bit.ly, bit.ly/now next no, all lowercase, no spaces. And I use this every single day. Now, I don't fill this out on a sheet anymore. I actually use a sticky note of this size. And every single day, I write down what I have to do now, what I do next, and what I am saying no to. And then every day, at the end of the day, I whip this puppy off and throw it away, and I start a new one for the next day. Now, I go through a couple of packs of these a year. You can see here, I'm almost to the end of this one, but I've got a whole bunch more. I get to do them in fun colors. But here's the thing about doing this. Every single day when I come to work, which is really just the commute from my bedroom to my office, I sit down, I look at my list, and I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing next, and I know what I'm not doing. And this is really important. This has been life-changing for me. So I started out with a sheet like you're looking at, single most important task, next 3 things, small, tiny things that I can use to fill in those gaps. Do you know when you have gaps? Between appointments. When you're like, ooh, I've got a half an hour between now and my next call or my next appointment. What am I going to do for that half an hour? And most of us, we tend to look around, grab our phone, and just start scrolling, right? But instead, what if we have a couple things that we've already teed up? These are these things that are, they're sitting there waiting to go. And then what's most important? No. What are we going to say no to today? Really, really critical, because do you know what we spend time on when we don't want to do the important thing that scares us a little? We spend time on doing the things we shouldn't do. True story. Absolutely. In fact, today, actually, I spent some time doing things I should not have done because I didn't want to do the number one thing on my list because it was a little scary. But this is how we grow. This is how we achieve our goals. So every day, at the end of the day, I rip off this, start a new one. Single most important task. What am I going to do next? What am I not going to do? Right? This is the number one thing that has kept me on track. You're welcome to have it. All right. So let's recap this section. What do we stop, start, and continue doing? We're going to set our goals. Now that we know what we're going to stop, start, and continue doing and why we have to stop, start, and continue doing those, we're going to set our goals. And then if you want an extra gold star, you're going to go through for each one of those goals and answer those questions, those 7 steps that you are going to take. And then maybe you go that little extra mile and start a habit of now, next, no in your business. Somebody once told me, a surgeon never goes into surgery, scrubs in, puts the head covering on, suits up, scrubs their arms, does all of that, puts the mask on, goes into surgery, looks around and says, where are my tools? That doesn't happen. When a surgeon goes into surgery, they walk in and all of their tools are sterilized and laid out and ready to go. And that is what this is for me. At the end of every day, in fact, after I finish recording this today, I'm going to whip off this top. I'm going to go to the sticky note underneath. And for tomorrow, I'm going to look at what's on my schedule and I'm going to write down what I'm going to do first, what's most important, what I'm going to do after that, and then what I'm not going to do. And so when I walk into my office here tomorrow morning, my tools are already laid out. So this is how we stay on track. Let's talk a little bit more about how we stay focused, shall we? All right, this is where you need to pause. If you need to go back and do anything, maybe go back and re-identify your goals. This is where you're going to pause, and then we're going to dive into focus. All right, here we go. You've got some goals. I'm really excited for you. This is where it gets fun. This is where we start to figure out how do we make these a reality? Because I don't know about you, but if I achieved all of my goals that I have on my list this year, all of these sticky notes, I would be ecstatic. It would be amazing. And you know what? We're going to do it. This is how we do it. We are going to stay focused. So one of the things that some of us really struggle with are time management. I always like to say procrastination is my drug of choice. You know what? Some of us have our brains just work that way. If you have ADHD, procrastination is just the way your brain is wired. So it's not always, it's almost never because we're lazy. It's just because this is how our brains work. Sometimes we work best under pressure. Sometimes we just have trouble focusing. The reason why we put together an ideal day is because sometimes we wake up in the morning and we look at our calendar and say, I don't actually know what I'm doing today. I don't actually know. I don't have anything on the schedule. And then what do? We watch Netflix. We do the things we shouldn't do. We don't do the things to help us work on our business. We sort of just like, eat our feelings. Okay, maybe that's just me. But you know what we can do is we can have an ideal day. And that is what pulls us back on track if we get a little bit off track. So this is where we start to look at a couple of things that we could do whenever we have one of those off track days. First, we look at our income producing activities. Back on that page where we were putting tick marks by buyers and sellers, this is where you start to add some of those most productive income producing activities. So for you, if it's repeat and referral, or it's your farm area, or it's cold calls, whatever it is, you're going to put those right on here. 2 or 3. That's all I'm looking for in each one of these boxes, just 2 or 3 activities. Then we've got your relationship building activities. These are the relationship building activities, the activities that help you talk to more people, add more people to your database, get more people into your sphere. Maybe this is networking. Maybe this is calling people. Maybe this is just calling people you've worked with in the past and saying, how are you? We haven't talked in a while. Just wanted to catch up. We just add a couple of in here, make a couple phone calls, maybe go to coffee with somebody, maybe go into the office and talk to some people about how the market's doing. This is really where we just add in that human element. And sometimes when we get stuck, what we need to do is just talk to more people, talk to more humans. All right, then we've got our administrative activities. These are, I don't know about you, but not the things that I love to do the most. Maybe my taxes, maybe paperwork, maybe going in and doing some work into my CRM, maybe filling out some of those forms or those emails that I've been putting off. All of those administrative things that we know that are opportunities in our business for us to be better time managers, better money managers, better task managers, but we put them off because they're not sexy. They're not fun. There are some things that we can do on those off days. And then our professional development. Do you remember when you filled in your SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Whatever's in your opportunity box, that is what goes right here. What do you need to learn? What's a class you need to take? What is something you need to spend some time on? What is something that you need to maybe trial and error? Maybe you need to take a course. Whatever that is, 2 or 3 things into professional development. Now you've got a cheat sheet for when you get stuck. Page 16, something that you could hang up on your wall. And when you have a day when you go, I don't know what to put on here. I don't know what I should be focusing on. I feel a little bit loosey-goosey with my business today. That's where you look at this and you realize you've got 2 or 3 things in every one of these categories that is going to help you run your business more efficiently. And this is where you come back to. All right. Awesome. Now we're going to start looking at our marketing focus. Marketing is a huge chunk of our business. Marketing is simply a fancy word for talking to more humans about what we can help them with. I don't know why we call it marketing. It's just a fancy way of saying it, but you really just do need to talk to more humans about how you can help them. And I like to plan that in advance. Maybe you aren't planning your marketing. Maybe you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants with your marketing. Maybe this is the year that you put a marketing plan or a marketing calendar in place. Now, I've organized this calendar by month, so you can see you can do it by quarter, or you can do it month by month. But this is where you start to write down all of those things that you are going to put time, money, energy, effort into creating marketing pieces or having specific marketing focus for your business. So maybe, towards the end of the year, you send out holiday cards. That becomes your big focus in November. Maybe around August, you send out football schedules, whatever it is. You're going to make sure you put that in there. Maybe you sponsor a local team. And so that becomes a huge focus in May and June and July. Whatever it is, this is where you start to pencil in all of the things that you are going to focus on for your marketing. The reason why we do this is it starts to give us an idea of where we are going to need to spend some time and energy and effort and money in order to achieve our goals. And so if we have sections here where we're like, wow, I'm just doing a lot in this month and I'm not doing a lot other months, this is where we need to maybe adjust our budget in terms of our time and our money to make sure that this is flowing a little bit more easily. It also just really helps us get a big picture idea of what it is that we have on our plate this year and where we're going to spend, again, our time and our money, our 2 most important resources. I've given you a monthly checkup page in here on page 18, and this is where you can just kind of come back in every single month and take a look at where you're at. What was your transaction goal? What was your GCI goal? What was your net goal? And obviously, how many of those conversations are you having? So if you are having those 104 conversations every single, or whatever it was, 105 conversations every single month, keep track of those. And what happens when you skip a month or 2 months? You don't just skip those numbers. It's got to double up down below. And so give yourself a little bit of a quarterly or a monthly check-in here. Put these in your calendar. Just give yourself a reminder on the first of every month to go in and take a look at where you are in comparison to your goals. Now, this is a recap page. This is really just for you to kind of get your head around the most important things that we've gone through so far in this workbook. So on page 19, you're going to write down your goal, transactions, your daily conversations, recap what success looks like to you in just a sentence or two. What is the biggest opportunity that you identified in your SWOT analysis? What are those 3 top income producing activities? What are the number 1 biggest money sucks in your business right now? What are you going to stop, start, and continue doing? And what's your top marketing focus? This is really just for those of you that are like, I need a recap. I need to figure out what are the most important things. Because at this point, guys, you've done a lot. You're on page 19. You are mostly through the hard part of the book. And I'm really proud of you. So this is where you spend a little bit of time recapping, putting your information here so that you've got, a bit of figuring out where you're at. Because next, we're going to go into money. And this is where it does get a little bit more in depth and a little bit scarier. And so we want to make sure that you have a good handle on where you need to be. All right, so let's recap. You're going to plan your ideal day. So when you have one of those off days, you've got, something to kind of pull you back on track. You're going to plan your marketing focus monthly or quarterly. And then you're going to create those accountability touch points, putting those in your calendar. So, every month you're going to hold yourself accountable and do a little bit of a review of where you're at. Okay. If at any point here you want to go back and spend a little more time on the pages that we've completed, this is where you're going to pause. And then we are going to talk profit. All right. Profit. Everybody's favorite word. Am I right? Yes. You know what? Did you know that the IRS says that, and if you're in Canada, same as it's true for you, the CRA says if you don't turn a profit in your business for 3 years, you don't have a business. you have a hobby. That's a little confronting because here's the thing. Most of us never calculate our profits. Most of us think, I made money. I paid my bills. I had enough that it sort of balanced out. I had profit. But that is not actually what profit is. We'll go into that in a little more detail. Profit is the most important thing that we should be tracking in our business because profit is where our goals come into reality. Profit is where our dreams come true. Profit is where the magic happens. And so before we dive into that, on page 22, I have given you a bit of a review in terms of your money habits. Now, again, there are no right or wrong answers here, but this is just a momentary audit for you to start asking yourself some hard questions. I challenge you, don't skip this page. Read these questions and answer them honestly. It's okay if you don't answer yes to every single one of them. You are not alone. I have met people who have been in the business for decades and can't answer yes to a lot of these questions. Do you have a consistent process when you earn income? Do I have a current list of all my expenses? What's my big financial goal? Do I know my profit amount? Do I have a process to keep track of my income and expenses? Do I have a system for paying taxes, for savings? Do I need to outsource or seek help? Do I know what my business money sucks are? Do I have the ability or opportunity to increase my commission, decrease my expenses, or decrease my taxes? Now, we're going to go into all of this. The book goes into this in a lot of detail that we probably, even parts of this, will skim over in this tutorial. But answering these questions helps you, again, get really comfortable talking about your money. And honestly, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a family where we never really talked about money. We never really talked about responsibility around money. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way when I started my business. No one ever taught me these systems that I'm going to go through with you in the next couple of pages. So don't be afraid. If you don't have these systems in place, you are not alone. You are not unusual. We are all going through the same process of learning. So now that you know where you're at, now that you've done a bit of an audit, you know what you need to focus on, right? So let's talk about profit. A lot of words on this page, on page 23, but the most important words are in the red and the blue. What is profit? A lot of people, again, they think I made money, I paid my bills, that was profit, but that's not true. When you make money, that is income. That is income. That is what income is. Coming in, the money comes in, right? We don't get real complicated with words here. Money coming in is income. It is not profit. Once you pay your expenses and you pay your taxes, so you take out the portion that goes to the government and you pay all of the expenses associated with your business, what is left, that is profit. Now, a lot of us, we never calculate that. We pay our taxes, we pay our bills. There's a little bit more. We hope more comes in, a little bit more comes in. We think, okay, great, I'm profitable. But we don't actually know if we're profitable if we don't calculate. So profit is the money left in your pocket after everything and everyone in your business is paid. There are only 3 ways to increase your profit. You can increase your commissions, which means you increase the percentage that you get paid on a commission, you increase the price point of the homes that you are selling, or you increase the number of transactions. That's one way. The second way is you can decrease your expenses. We're going to talk a lot about that too. And 3, you can decrease your taxes. Yes, that's actually a thing. There are some ways to decrease the taxes that we pay. So these are the 3 things that we can do to increase our profit. We can make more money, we can decrease our expenses, and we can pay fewer taxes. That's it. That's how we can increase our profit. So now that we understand these words, understanding that we get to control how much we spend and where we spend it, and this is on us to calculate, let's go in a little bit more to our expenses. Now on page 24, there is a link in your digital workbook that is going to lead you to the template you see on your screen. Again, like I said earlier, this is a Google Doc template. So you get to save it, make a copy, and then you can fill it out. So this is a really rough template that is going to let you outline every single one of your expenses, personal and business. Now I've put everything that I can think of on there. You may have some things that you can delete or you need to add. I've put, children and pets, and some of that may not apply to you. But feel free to delete or leave blank anything that doesn't apply or add in anything that does. This is what allows you to start to identify every single expense that you have in your life and your business. Now, I know what you're thinking. Holy crap, Val, that doesn't sound like fun. This is how we run profitable businesses, y'all. When we get real comfortable talking about our money, the more that we avoid this, the more that we try not to look at it, the more that we just kind of shove receipts in a box, hand it to our accountant, and hope, the less likely we are to become profitable. The only way that I knew that I was running a profitable business was when I sat down and I wrote down every single thing that I spent last year in my business and in my life, and started looking at how I was spending my money and figuring out what was left. So I know this is a little painful. This is something that's going to take some time, but I promise you, if you are the small percentage of agents that actually take the time to fill this out and understand where your money goes, you are far more likely to run a profitable business, because now you know where the baseline is. You know what you need to make. You know what you have to earn in order to sustain your life and your business. Okay. So I really want you to spend some time on this. I want you to go into this worksheet. I want you to save a copy of it and fill it out. Because it is Excel sheet, it will allow you to put all the numbers in and it will total it for you, so you don't have to sit there and manually calculate. This is a great place to start. All right. Then you're going to review your expenses. And there's a couple of things here that, I'm not going to read all of this to you. You're going to do a regular budget review. You're going to go in and set yourself a calendar reminder every single month to go in and do a budget review. What are you spending? What's coming off your credit card that you haven't even noticed? What's renewing? What are some of those things that you're paying for every single month or every single year that you're not using, or maybe you should be using? What are those things in order to hold yourself accountable that you are spending your money on? And then I want you to pay attention to the small things, because it really adds up. Those things where, you pay for that extra storage, or you pay for that extra app, or you pay for that extra whatever it is, or you've got stuff stuck in subscription service on your Amazon and you haven't renewed that in a while, you haven't taken a look at it. What are all of those things that are adding up, those little bits? Every single year I do this, I sit down and I look at all my automatic expenses, all the things that come off my credit card automatically. And every single year I find at least $500 or $600 that I can remove off of my expense sheet, because those are just things that either I'm not using, I signed up for, and I don't need anymore, I've forgotten about. Maybe a tool that I'm using more has that same capability now, and I can delete that other one. So I want you to pay attention to that. And then I want you to look at all of those things that you are spending money on that you are keeping, and figure out, what is the return on investment? Are you at least using those tools in a way that's at least letting you recoup the cost of having those? So the key is to spend your money intentionally. Now, again, this sounds like work because it is work, but this is the only way that we get to the point that we have profitable businesses. I also want you to start reviewing your goals through the lens of your profitability or your budget. When you start thinking about your goals and you sat down and wrote, I want to do this and I want to do this, those professional and personal goals, how are you building those into your budget? As we start to put a budget together here, how are you building those goals in? That big personal goal, are you breaking them down into months so that you know how much you need to put away for that? What about your marketing? We set down those marketing goals, right? So are you calculating those things, your print materials, your distributions, your ads? Are you calculating those in and factoring those in? And then I also want you to think about your daily conversation number. How many people are you talking to a day? And are you budgeting both your time and your money, allowing you to do that? Okay, this is a big, big section, and we've gone through it really quickly. But I really want you to take a few minutes if you need to, pause, go back, spend a little time on this. You can always come back and restart. This section, I want you to examine your habits. What are you spending money on? What are you spending time on? I want you to understand your profit. Are you calculating your profit? And in the next section, we're going to walk through how to do that. Are you detailing your expenses? Are you getting really up close and personal with where your money's going? And then are you reviewing your goals and calculating those into your budget? All right, once you've spent some time on that, join me over in money management. We're going to talk about how to get practical on doing some of these things. All right, money management. All right, I've scared you with the talk of profit and budgets, but this is where it gets real. And this is where it actually gets really fun, because when you can start to see your profit building, you can start to see your goals happening. This is where it gets real good. This is where business gets juicy, because now we can start to understand how to make our goals, more than goals, make them reality. Okay, so we are on page 27, and this is where we start using my favorite B word, budget. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a family. Well, first of all, I had a really big family. And so we always knew how to stay within a budget, but we were taught with our allowance how to budget. And so this was one thing I've always been real good at. But for you, you may be thinking, Val, I don't budget. Why would I budget? I'm an adult. Just the money comes in, I pay the things. Budgeting is really where it helps us make our goals a reality in our business. Budgeting for our business is where we figure out what to do with our profit. Not just are we making profit, but what do we do with our profit? So I've given you a really basic drawing of a budget here. Money comes in, that's income. Remember, incoming money is income, not profit. We take out our taxes, gone. We don't get to keep those. Maybe we get some back, but that money does not belong to us, so that's gone. Then we pay our expenses. What do we owe in order to keep our business afloat? So all of those things that we've put onto our spreadsheet come off. And what is left is profit. So you got to check, taxes come out, expenses get paid, whatever's left is profit. Now we get to decide what to do with that profit. We get to give it a job. This is where the fun happens. We can decide, do I want to save it? Do I want to invest it back into my business? Or do I want to spend it? Buy that vacation or whatever it is, right? Now, this is a really simplistic view of a budget, but this is really about as complicated as we need to get. Money comes in, we pay our taxes, we pay our expenses. What's left, we give it a job. Every single dollar gets a job. That's really how a budget works. Every dollar has a job. You're either a tax dollar, you're an expense dollar, or you're a profit dollar. And then those profit dollars are where we get to make the magic happen. So if you're not running your business this way, chances are you're like most people. Money comes in, you pay what you can, money comes in, you pay what you can, money comes in, you pay what you can, you hope more money comes in. You're not alone if that's you. We've all been there. But I want you to get into a process or a system in your business where you are working with the money you've already made instead of waiting for the money that's coming. This is where a profitable business gets not only comfortable, but gets predictable. So we want a profitable and a predictable business. Now, this couple of pages that you're looking at in your book are essentially the system, the process from youneedabudget.com. I've given you really simplistic views of that. Essentially, every dollar needs a job. You're going to know what your expenses are. We're already halfway there, right? We know what our expenses are. You're going to figure out how you can build a system so you can roll with the punches when things come up, the washing machine dies, whatever it is. And you're going to age your money, which means you are going to start working on money. Working with money you've already made, not with money that you have yet to earn. So I'm going to let you spend some time on this and read this on your own. Where it gets really important is when we get to this, your process. Now, most of you probably don't do this, or you don't do this in full. This is the system that I wish someone had taught me 20 years ago. This is the system that I wish somebody had taught me when I started running my own business. And I'm going to walk you through it today. Essentially, what this is sort of like the envelope system. You know, where you have like a bunch of envelopes, you take your paycheck, you cash it, you put all the cash in the envelopes, and when you run out, you're out for that section. It's kind of how it works, but this is really how we start not only aging our money, but this is how we start running a profitable business. We have a plan every time we get paid. So we get a check, and we have some options. So where this starts is you open 5 bank accounts. You probably already have a couple bank accounts. You probably have the option to have some savings accounts, whatever, but you have 5 bank accounts. And these days, because we use online banking, we get to name those bank accounts whatever we want. And so you're going to have a bank account called income, taxes, business, profit, and savings. Those are going to be your 5 bank accounts. Now, when money comes in, you've already calculated what your expenses are. So you know what it costs you to live: your mortgage, your rent, your food, your pets, your car payment, whatever you've got. You know what your expenses are. So money comes in and you know what it's going to cost you to run your life. That stays in your income account. Okay. Money comes into your income account, not rocket science, and it stays in your income account to pay your expenses that you need to live on. First things first, we take out our taxes. We put what we're going to owe into that tax account and we don't touch it. We don't go into that tax account. That's off limits. Don't link it to your ATM card. Don't touch it. That's your tax account. That sometimes takes real discipline because we see that money start to add up over the year. We pay our quarterlies, whatever, but that bucket gets a little full by the end and we think, ooh, that's a lot of money, but that is not our money. We don't get to keep it. So we don't touch that. So taxes go into the tax account and we don't touch it. And then we know what our budget, what our business expenses are. And so we move business expenses into our business account. Everything we spend on our business account goes through our business expense account, or everything we spend on our business goes through that business account. Everything that gets paid, for our business or from our business, that account. So that makes it really nice and easy for our accountant for our taxes at the end of the year. And then whatever is left goes into profit. Yay. Now, sometimes that might be $1. Sometimes that might be $100. Sometimes that could be $1,000. Sometimes that could be $10,000. Whatever it is, it goes into our profit account. And then we get to decide what we do with it. We can either save it, put it into our savings account, and that goes towards whatever we're saving for. Maybe, again, that cottage, that second home, that investment property, college tuition, whatever we're saving for, it goes in our savings account. Or we can spend it. So it goes back into our income account and we get to spend it. Or we can invest it and it goes back into our business account. And this is where we make our goals happen. We can either do more marketing, or we can do those extra sponsorships, or we can do that client appreciation party, whatever it is. That is where our goals happen, is when we have money in our profit account. So this is, again, a really simple system. It doesn't take a lot to set this up. What it does take is some discipline to get started. Take some discipline to start realizing when money comes in, it comes into this account. I sit down in my online banking. I immediately transfer out my taxes. I immediately transfer my business expenses over. I pay my business expenses out of that. Whatever is left, it's not immediately spending money. Because I've been there. I've been to that point where I'm like, okay, taxes, business expenses, other expenses, woo, leftover money. That's profit. We put it into our profit account and we are intentional with how we spend it, right? This is how we make the magic happen. We've also got some advice in here around taxes. Now, I am not a CPA, nor am I playing one on television, so I am not going to be able to give you specific instructions on how you can reduce the amount that you pay on your taxes. There are some great tips here in terms of tracking your mileage and your deductions and really understanding depreciation. I think the most important thing to remember is that every single expense, while it might be a deduction, does not mean that we don't actually have to pay that. So I always think of that wonderful skit on Schitt's Creek that is, you don't understand what a deduction is. No, it's a deduction. We need to understand what deductions are. And so I implore you to please bring a professional accountant or bookkeeper into your business at some stage to help you figure out how to decrease your taxes and what are some of the things that you can put into place. Because again, remember, we only have 3 ways to increase our profit. We can increase our commission, we can decrease our expenses, and we can decrease our taxes. All right. We also want to make sure that we look at our marketing and constantly be revising what we are spending on our marketing. Marketing is the #1 place that a lot of us can just get really carried away. Oh, I'll just order a few more of those, or I'll order 1,000 of that, or I'll just, I'll have some extra of this, or I'll spend some money on that ad. And we don't really think about how we are spending our money in the broader scheme. We're just looking at it in the moment. So I want you to always be advised of your goals, aware of your goals, Look at the resources that you already have available to you before you start paying for more. Common mistake that I see a lot of us making is, oh, I got to buy this shiny thing, but we already have something that's available to us through our brand or brokerage or MLS or association that would solve that problem. Budget for the basics, plan for the rest, use your marketing calendar. Planning ahead and sticking to your budget is one of the best ways to reduce the spend. And this is on page 34, this is the form that I was talking to you about calculating your profit. This is where you can put in all of your income, all of your tax amounts, your business and personal expenses, and it will calculate out for you your profit. And then you get to decide where that profit is going to go. So you can either estimate this for the year, or you can work on this regularly and fill this in monthly. But this is going to allow you to get a really close up look at the profit in your business and figure out what you are going to do with it. So on page 35, I've given you a quick recap here on your money management. So a couple of just to-dos here. Set up those bank accounts, get super clear on your expenses, set those financial goals, know your profit number, have that payday process every time you get paid, identify ways to increase your income, decrease your taxes, decrease your expenses, creating a plan for your profit, whether it's $1 or it's $1 million, how are you going to spend that? Again, plan your marketing spend and stay on top of that, because that's one of the areas that can sometimes snowball, and then scale your marketing plans as you grow. All right. You have done some of the hardest work when it comes to your business plan. I know that a lot of you are like, wow, this is a lot. Typically, I would just write down some goals and then call it a day. But that is not how we smash our year. That is just how we coast through. And I want you to smash it. So I want you to take a few minutes, take a deep breath, pause here if you need to go back and fill in anything else. And we're going to go into time management next. All right. Time management it is. You know, the number one thing that I hear from people about why they don't achieve their goals is because they didn't manage their time. It's a little bit about how we manage our money, I'm not going to lie, but it's a lot about how we manage our time. And it's one of the simplest things that we can solve. We can't always guarantee that we're going to get more money, but we can always know how much time we're dealing with in a day, and we can get really intentional about how we spend it. And so I want to give you a couple of tips on how to be a better time manager. And we're going to start with just understanding the difference between urgent and important. This is just one of the mindset things that just makes such a big difference. This idea of, oh my gosh, everything's urgent, everything's on fire, I have got to do this right now. Or is it, right? So one of the things I love is this Eisenhower chart that really kind of walks us through what is urgent and what is important, and when do the two overlap, and how we need to focus on these things on our to-do list. Do you remember I said to you, I always do my now, my next, and my no? A lot of times what's on my no is the stuff that is, you know, really not important and not urgent. And I seem to just spend a lot of time there because I'm procrastinating the things that I really should be doing. And so if it's not urgent, which means there's no time limit attached, it doesn't have to be done by a certain time, and it's not important, which means it doesn't impact anyone other than you, chances are it's something that you either don't need to do or you can schedule it, right? That red section, it always says don't do it at all. But there are some things that we can't just take off our plate completely, but we can schedule it. What if it's not urgent, but it's important? Like it doesn't have a time limit, but it is super important that we do it. That's what we schedule. We put those on our calendar. Those are those admin tasks, those things that we need to do. There's not necessarily a date attached to, but they are very important that they get done. So we schedule them. What if it's urgent? There's a time attached to it, but it's not important. It's not going to impact anybody other than us. It's like our taxes, right? We either delegate those. This is maybe where we bring in that professional help. We bring in that accountant or that bookkeeper, or we delegate it to a system. So maybe this is something that we need to have a system in our business. And then we have those things that are both urgent and important, impacts other people and has a time limit on it. Those are the things that we do first. Those are the nows that we do on our list. So nows, our next are in blue, and then maybe our nos are those things that are in red that we are consistently spending time on that we should not be doing, right? So I challenge you the next time you get into to-do list overload, which was me today. Whoa! I had to sit down and go, what is urgent? What is important? And where do they overlap? Those are the things I need to focus on. If it is neither, Maybe those are the things that I need to either take off my list, or I need to systemize, or I need to schedule. Okay. All right. This is where we come back to our ideal day. Those things that you said, look, these are important things in my business. This is where my business comes from. These are where my relationships happen. These are where I get things done. This is where I learn and focus on those opportunities. Every time you get into to-do list overload, right? Sit down and look at, are these things producing income, building relationships, helping me manage my time and my effort, and helping me to grow my opportunities? So spend some time on that, page 39, and start looking at how you are spending your days. I've got some information in here about delegating. For some of you, this is one of the bigger reasons why you aren't getting things done. You have someone that you could delegate to, but you don't do it very well. So I've got some tips on there for you. But I want to just come back to this for a minute. Page 41, my top 5 time management tips. First one, stop spending so much time in your inbox. Now, I don't know about you, but every realtor I've ever met has like 28,732 unread emails. And y'all, stop with that. I use a tool called unroll.me, and I go in monthly, put my email address in, and unsubscribe to all the junk mail that I am getting. You can do that all in one go. All in one go on unroll.me. You can also use Boomerang, which is a tool, but you know what? Google has that built in right now where you can just literally like bounce it. So you can just reschedule it, have it come back. I think they call it snooze. So you hit the little clock in your Gmail and have it snooze and say, I want to deal with this on Tuesday. So everything that's not urgent, that is important, but not urgent, snooze it until that time that you've blocked out to get all of that stuff done, and then have it come back into your inbox at that time. We spend too much time in our inbox, and that is because we are not utilizing the systems that we have available to us. 2, eat the frog first. Mark Twain said, if you eat a live frog first thing in the morning, nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. If you wake up in the morning and you do the thing that you've written down as your now, even if it's terrifying, even if you don't want to do it, even if it's really painful, even if it's super scary, do that thing first. If you do that thing first, everything else will feel easy. So eat the frog first. Time block. I know a lot of us think that we can't time block because we're in a business where the phone rings, somebody wants to see a house, we've got to run, we've got to put out fires, and that's true. But you know what? We can time block in small increments. This is one of my favorite things ever. It's a timer. It sits on my desk. I can turn it to whatever time I need. So in this case, 5 minutes. I press it and it starts counting down. And now I have this little timer sitting on my desk looking at me. And I only do what I'm supposed to be doing for the next 20 minutes. So I set it to 20 minutes, press go, and that's it. I don't do anything else. I don't look at my phone. I don't answer my email. For those 20 minutes, I am only doing that thing that I am focusing on. This has been a life changer for me because now, and you could absolutely talk to your she who shall not be named who sits on your desk, your Google device. You could also talk to Siri, whatever. You could ask them to set a timer, but I prefer to just have a good old fashioned egg timer on my desk and set it and have it go until I can stop focusing. Seriously, I don't know. I bought it on Amazon for like $10. Super, super helpful. All right, don't wallow. Again, this seems like such a random thing, but this is one of the things that takes up so much of our time. Have you ever called a client who's really negative, and for the first like 20 minutes of the phone call, all they do is complain? Have you ever had a friend who just complains, and for like the first 20 minutes of your conversation is just complaining? Think of the fact that you'll never get that 20 minutes back. What if you started your conversations with something positive? What if every time you called a client, you immediately started with something positive and you did not go down the rabbit hole of wallowing in negativity? You're going to get so many minutes of your day back. Start with positivity. And then lastly, know your time thieves. I absolutely know that procrastination is my biggest problem. Whatever yours is, identify it, name it, and be aware of it. So when you find yourself doing it, you can stop. Some of you are saying yes instead of no. Some of you are allowing yourself to be consistently interrupted. Some of you are not setting a timer and staying focused. Whatever that is for you, find a way to name it. All right, we're recapping this section. Prioritize, time block, know you're urgent and you're important. Focus on those income producing activities. When you get stuck or you get lost, go back to those most important things. Delegate and stop and start doing the right things. All right. There are a couple of sections in here that we're going to skim over really quickly. And these are the last two, branding and marketing. There's some great tips in here, some great things that I want you to read through. I'm going to give you these really high level because essentially these are the sections that I want you to read through on your own. I've given you on page 45 here some really great questions to ask yourself about your brand, about who you are as a brand, as your own personal brand, what you stand for, why you exist. These are things that should be the ingredients that you mix into all of your marketing, into all of your communications with your clients. These are the things that should stand out. These are the things that people are going to talk about when you aren't in the room. I'm also giving you some conversations here around some ideas here around messaging and how messaging has changed and how important it is when we are messaging to our clients that we are creating those messages that allow people to respond to us and also engage with us. And then I've got a really great story in here about peanut butter and having an I statement instead of a Y statement. And I really want you to spend some time and read that because this is one thing that I think will change the way that you market and message to your customers. So make sure you read the page about peanut butter. And then lastly, on page 49, I want you to spend some time thinking about what makes you weird. Now, I know that sounds a little funny, but what is it that makes you different from your competition? This is the most valuable thing that you have to offer, is what makes you uniquely you and not the same as everyone else. I want you to spend some time on this, page 49, and really think about what makes you unique and weird, and how do you incorporate that messaging when you are speaking to your customers. The last section is marketing, and in this section, I have given you 10 ways to spice up your marketing. I've given you a little bit about why marketing is important and how we do it, but I also just want you to remember that marketing is just talking to humans about how you can help them. So I've given you 10 ideas that you can rip off and duplicate and make your own so that you can do a little refresh to your marketing plan for this year. So your final homework as we finish this tutorial, you've hung in there, you've filled out your book, you have some areas that maybe you need to go back to. Maybe you need to go back to your SWOT analysis and really start looking at your opportunities. I want you to review your stats. What are your numbers? Do you know them? What are you missing? Detail your goals, get really specific, and then get more specific, and then even more specificer. I know that's not a word, but it's fun to say. And then I want you to get up close and personal with your money. This is one of the number one things that stands between you and those people that consistently struggle in their business. If you can run a profitable and predictable business, you are going to be light years ahead of your competition. And I want you to guard your time, because it is one of your biggest resources, not just your money, but your time. How are you spending it? And how should you not be spending it? All right, y'all, I'm really proud of you. It is time for you to take flight. You have completed your book. It is yours. It is your resource for the year. Don't put it in a drawer. Keep it where you can see it. Go back, do your regular quarterly check-ins or your monthly check-ins. Keep yourself, keep your goals visible, keep yourself accountable. And you know what? I want you to tell me how you're doing. I want you to catch up with me. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm super easy to find, or you can, drop me a note off my website, valeriegarcia.com. I want to hear how you're doing. I want to hear how this is changing your business and changing your life, because I don't want you to just soar. I don't want you to just coast. I want you to smash it this year. Super important to me that you are taking these things and putting them into practice. Thanks for joining me. Thanks again for investing into your business and into your profitability and predictability. And I'm super excited to see how it goes for you.